If anyone knows why the camera does that, let me know. Because it just... Focus. Focus. There it goes. I don't know why it does that. But we're going to do ghost stories. The haunted house on Moore Avenue. I had to write down all of the things because there are quite a bit, and my sister has some, and my eldest sister has some, my second eldest sister has some, and even my dad has some. I'm sure there's more. Funny thing about that house is I met someone, and I know I talked about this in another video, but I met a volunteer who was volunteering at the museum, and I had a plat book from the neighbor, from the family house neighbor, and he showed where his grandmother's house was, and I was like, I lived in that house, and he's like, no way. And I was like, yeah, that house is haunted. And he's like, yeah, that house is haunted. Now, this guy is in his late 40s, early 50s, and he said as a child that house was haunted when he was a kid. And his grandmother would joke with him all the time that ghost was going to get him. And he said the ghost name, and he said it was a doctor, but like a surgeon doctor or something like that. But I was like, oh, I wonder what the history is on that. I wonder if there's any news articles. And then I was like, you know what? Let's not feed that ghost any attention. Let's not go there. But so let's see, what are we going to talk about today? Because we already talked about introducing the house itself, the layout, and all of the critters. I guess we'll do the shadow figures first before we get into all of the individual ghosts. So me and my sister shared a room for the longest time. She says there was a middle-aged couple that lived in that room that would laugh at her, make fun of her, and all of that. I don't think I ever met them. I don't think I ever gleaned a middle-aged couple in that room. What I did glean was all the shadow figures in that room, because there was 5 to 6 shadow figures in that room, mostly in the corner by the windows, because it was, when you walked into the room, it was like a tiny itty bitty hallway that had like storage area. And then to the left was the walk-in closet bathroom situation, which I had a nightmare with that. But like later on, like it took me a decade to stop having nightmares about that house. And then it opened up to the room that had, I don't think it had a main central light, but it had like light fixtures on the walls, and then 2 good size windows. And so me and my sister shared a room. We shared a room most of our lives. And so she says there was a middle-aged couple in that room, but I only knew about the shadow figures, the entity, and like the occasional little boy visit in that room. But so the shadow figures, I don't really recall them having any gender. They were just these slender, tall figures that would just stand in the corner. And then when my sister moved out of the room and she moved into the next room over, because my great aunt moved out, but so she moved into the next room over, and it was just me in that room. I had to sleep with a boombox radio on all the time, not to like a radio station, but to like nature music. just to drown out the sounds of the house at night, because and I had to sleep a certain way. So I had my bed in the corner, so two sides of the bed was touching walls, and then thankfully my bed had like a little foot stop, and so there was only one free edge, but on that free edge, I put a little dinner tray, like the living room dinner trays. I put that right in front of it, and then I had my nightstand closest against the wall to the head of the bed. And then so it was like a tiny wall. It was my makeshift tiny wall. So like I had my candle and that on the nightstand, and then the boombox was on the dinner tray stand. And so I would put CD in and try to fall asleep. and so that's what I used to try to fall asleep, because we had wood floors, and anytime I would face my back towards the room, I would hear the floorboard start to creak slowly. Like it wasn't like a fast step, it was like a slow progressive sound of the wood creaking closer and closer and closer. And so I would have to turn back towards the room and be like, stop it. I'm trying to sleep. And so every once in a while when my shoulder would hurt a lot, I would try to switch it so that I could not sleep on the same shoulder every night. But then the creaking would start, and so I would have to turn back and be like, okay, these mofos just want to be trolly and start walking towards me while my back is turned. It's not nice. So there was that. I don't think it ever resolved. And then the candle would go low. So I always had my religious candle on. And sometimes, the candles, they get low. Sometimes if the wick isn't right, if the wax is not burning correctly, it gets mutated. But every once in a while, it would the light would slowly, especially, okay, so even in summertime, when the activity was high, the room would get super cold, and you could always tell there was some activity going on, because the temperature would start to drop, and then you could start seeing your breath. And even in the summertime, you could see your breath during high activity times. And as soon as the temperature started dropping, I'd be like, oh no, they're back. And then I would see my breath, and I'd be like, oh no. And then I'd look over to my candle, and sometimes the light on my candle would start to dim and dim and dim. And I'd be like, don't you dare turn that candle out. Don't you dare. And so I don't think it ever really went out. Sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and the candle would be out, but for the most part, it stayed on. Or I would furiously dig at the wax to scoop the wax out so the candle would stay lit. Man. So there was that. And the shadow figures, they weren't too many to begin with, but I had a friend in high school. She was on my soccer team. I had tarot cards at that time, and I naively said, hey, do you want to try my tarot cards? And then she just obsessively, furiously was just doing cards after cards after cards after cards. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And then after that, the shadow figures got worse. And I was like, oh no, what did I do? So I'm not sure how that resolved. I don't think it ever did. I think a big baddie came in and kind of push the shadow figures away, and then I was just dealing with an entity after that, which I guess was better or worse. It wasn't as frequent as visits as a shadow people, but like, you don't want to be messing with entities, and I don't think I really want to discuss that because it wasn't a ghost or a spirit, it was an entity. And I really don't want to see if it will find me again. So we're not going to discuss that. But I think that was kind of the resolution, was that thing moved in instead, and then it kind of pushed the shadow people away. And then we moved out. So we kind of had to move out. But those were the shadow people. I don't think I saw them anywhere else in the house. I didn't really stay too long in the house. So, any other than the living room, my room, the computer room, and the kitchen. But I didn't see them in those areas. And we did have dogs, but our room was not where they could get at, so they were never really patrolling around our windows. They had their own problem with the mice stealing their fur to make little nests, but like, the house was a trip. But that was the shadow people. The next one I think I'll go over next time will be the little boy ghost, because he was seen by everybody. So, and he was not the quiet little boy ghost from the family house who kind of stayed to himself that I only saw. This little boy ghost was troubled. So, I mean, the other one was too, but like, think introvert versus extrovert, troubled little boy ghost. So we'll talk about him next time. But what are your thoughts? Or experiences with shadow people, or temperature drops, or things like that? Leave them in the comments. Bye.